We have the street festivals going on as well, but there's some things that are just like big in the city, and when those things come around, from my experience as a young man, I notice like men salivate like over these type of times. This is the time you want to go outside. This is the time you want to show out. This is the time you got your Sunday's best on, you know?
Okay,
like,
I get that.
Like you're clean, you know?
Okay,
You're clean, like you're going to church or something. And I think the reason why people love those opportunities because it's like the one and only chance.
And we back at it again.
Let's get it.
Woo
Far
wee!
from normal bros, we back.
Yes, sir.
Back, you know what time it is.
Summertime high right now. It's that time, it's that season
Yes,
where
sir.
everybody's out and about, street parties galore, festivities going crazy. This weekend, there's a festival that was going on.
Yep.
And there's going to be multiple festivals moving forward. I think at least until about the tail end of July. So we got a couple festivals to go through. But when it comes to festivals, do you think this year you're going to partake in these festivals, or you're going to kind of lay back and bunker down, figure some stuff out, then possibly do it next year? Or
Nah, man. For me, I'm gonna take advantage of the year.
Okay.
Like, cause my thing is, especially in Toronto, there's not like so much shit going on after summer. So
Yes,
like
you're
this is
right.
literally the only time. If you think about it, even we're halfway in the year, and pretty much we just started getting like a hot spell. Like we just started getting a couple consistently hot days. But it's been pretty cold in May. As we've seen, it's historically cold for May in the city of Toronto. And now it's just starting to get warm. Festivals are bumping, they're back. You know, people are outside. Like you said, the fest that we just checked out, Do West Fest, that's in Toronto, Dundas West Fest. And that was a pretty crazy vibe just to see how much people were outside in the city, vibing, music, food, all type of vibes, right? So I like to take advantage of that, especially because most of these events are free events.
Yes.
And a lot of the shit in the city, I even read something saying Toronto is one of the most expensive cities to like live in. So just with that being said, shit's expensive here to go out, to eat, to drink, to do stuff. It's expensive. So it's refreshing to do something that you don't really need to spend that much money. You might spend a little money on little like street food and little small things like that. Souvenirs, but at least you're not at the club paying 400% for liquor. You can just stop by the liquor store and go get yourself a little drink and have a little buzz, walk around, smoke your little spliff. You know? That's what it is.
No, 100%. I think a lot of people don't really understand that aspect of street festivals, where it's a little more easygoing, laid back. The same amount of women or even more women you'll find at a festival rather than you'll find in a club. And the good thing about street festivals are they tend to take place during the day, right? So you have an extended time period to, let's say, if a guy wanted to try and pick up a girl, they have the day to do that.
You got a full
right?
day.
They got a full day
until the sun drops. And
Hopefully,
even you still got a
yes,
chance.
and then even as the sun drops, they're still out and about. But I think the only thing you got to pray for is good weather. That is the only thing you got to pray for.
That's the only
honestly.
thing. Yes, if the weather shit,
Then it kind of puts a damper on the festivities.
For sure.
So you do want to hope and pray that you get good weather. But right now, so far, the weather has been standing perfectly. It's been perfect.
Yeah, it's been a good couple of days.
It has been a good couple days. The 2 days that I went to do West Fest were amazing, packed. It's like almost, I would call it the jump off for the summer.
Yeah, people are saying that.
It's definitely the jump off because now everybody's coming out. As you said, the weather hasn't been good these last couple weeks. Just not too long ago, they were saying that in May, late May, they were saying that it hasn't been that cold since 1967. So that in itself just tells you where the climate was and where it is now. And again, even though where it's at now, it's still not at its peak.
Yeah, it's
It's
not at its
still
peak, but we're
it's
getting there.
climbing, but we're getting there. But we're seeing definitely improvements. You could go out in a shirt and t-shirt at those festivals, so you were good and you got to enjoy your time. They had DJs out there,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
makes the street
There's-
festivals almost like a club situation, but with
Yeah.
no booth.
With no booth,
Yeah, you
with
know what
no
I mean?
booth, no bottle service, and then
Yes.
also like you have to also remember the type of people that are going there aren't gonna be like so superficial
Yes.
or like that type of vibe, right? In the club, it is what it is. You got guys buying boots and bottles. That's obviously to get a look, show some clout. You get what I mean? Get some attention to your
Also brings some kind of prestige.
Bring some prestige to yourself or your group of people you're with to say you're kind of better than the rest because you have this section specifically designated for you. And then, women flock towards that. Everyone knows this. So I think for men, generally speaking, they like the fest just because it evens the playing field. There's going to be a lot of women that are just going out to have a good time. They're not going out specifically to maybe go into someone's booth or have some bottle service or whatever the case may be. I think those type of events are very like low maintenance type of thing. Like I would say like low effort, easygoing environment, I would say. But you're still getting the enjoyment that's necessary. But I think you do have opportunity to meet people in those type of environments that you probably wouldn't meet at the club because you got all types of different people. You don't got a specific subset of people that go to that specific club. You got people from all over the city that are coming around. You even got foreigners traveling, tourists. I've definitely bumped into a couple tourists, people that are not from here, that are trying to see what's going on in the city. So for me, this time in Toronto, one of the best times in Toronto. From this point, start of June, all the way to I'd say
mid-August.
Mid-August, yeah. Everything's pretty much going to be bumping outside. So
100%.
So yeah.
So my thing is, I wanted to ask, from your own experience, like your friend group, your circle,
Yeah.
people that have gone to these street festivals, in terms of women and relationships, have you seen some kind of development happen afterwards? Just people maybe it could be just general.
Well, yeah.
Have you ever heard of stories?
If I'm speaking on myself, yeah, for sure. I've heard plenty stories of, people like, getting with people, meeting people, whatever, developing a relationship afterwards. I've heard stories of these things happening, but at the same time, it's like I'm not like a young spring chicken. Like it's not like I'm 21, right?
Yeah.
So I'm older now. So obviously I've been outside for a little bit and I've been, I hear a lot of different scenarios of dating stories and how you met somebody. So there's lots of different scenarios. But I'd say for street festivals, it's a time for men, just generally speaking. Even when I was younger, I feel like any of these street festivals, especially when you're talking about like stuff like Caribana, the big ones, right? Like the huge ones. We have the street festivals going on as well, but there's some things that are just like big in the city. And and when those things come around, from my experience as a young man, I notice like men salivate like over these type of times. This is the time you want to go outside. This is the time you want to show out. This is the time you got your Sunday's best on,
I get that.
You're clean, you're clean, like you're going to church or something. And I think the reason why people love those opportunities because it's like the one and only chance, especially in the summer. You only got a couple of these weekends that you can really capitalize on, like meeting people and
100%.
seeing an abundance of like women. And don't get me wrong, on the women's side as well, they're probably like there's gonna be so much like good looking men out there that they want to meet, that they want to talk to, or hope that they get approached by. So on both sides, especially if you're single, like it's a good opportunity to meet somebody that you would otherwise probably not meet just under regular circumstances, unless just by coincidence.
That's interesting that you say that because when I speak to women, like some of my homegirls, and when we talk about festivals and stuff of that sort, they're not typically looking for a man at the festival. A lot of the time when they go out to these festivals, they want to have fun. They just want to be with the girls, hang out, dance on each other. Just kind of, it's a girls' night out type of deal. But I think in the back of their head, they're hoping that they get approached by the right guy. You know, they're expecting a certain type of man to approach them. But typically, that's not the case. It's usually people that they're not really looking for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like here's the case. Here's the real deal when it comes to like women and probably their thought process. I'm not a woman, disclaimer. But again, when it comes to women and their thought process, it's like, yeah, they might have in the back of them, they might go there with intentions to just have a good time.
Yes.
Just like men. Men might go there with intentions to have
Just
a good
to
time.
have a good time, 100%.
It's like, I'm just going to go there, drink, get a buzz, smoke a little,
That's it.
chill. Like, play a couple games or whatever, eat
Talk
some
with
food,
the boys.
talk with the boys. And yeah, it's just, shits and giggles.
Yeah.
But when it comes to a woman now, obviously, I don't think a woman has the same pressure or faces the same pressure, at least as a man, when they go out anywhere. Because the fact of the matter, they just need to sit there. They just need to stand there. They just need to walk there. They don't really need to think about who's going to approach me and who's not going to approach me. They know they're going to get approached if they're good looking. And even if they're subpar, they still may get approached depending on how they carry themselves, how they dress. I say a 5 that dresses provocatively is better than a 9 or an 8, you know, because men's attention will be, gravitating towards her. Even if there's a more gorgeous woman, they'll just say, oh, this looks a little easier, so let's go with the...
That's when the wolves come out.
That's when the wolves come out. So now let's go down to women, and you said they're not really interested or they don't profess that they have so much interest to meet a guy. Okay, I can believe that. Like, I can believe majority of women don't go there trying to meet a guy or trying to, bump into a guy unless it happens in a organic way.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think women necessarily love the fact of, guys approaching them and trying to, get their numbers when they're strangers. I don't think a lot of women receive that well.
That's what I get out of, that's what I've been seeing and hearing from women. What I'm starting to understand when it comes to women, they would generally they would like to meet a man within their circumference, within their circle.
I think it's trust issues.
Friends.
It's trust issues.
They don't know your background. They don't know where you're coming from.
Yes, and
which is not. I can vouch for you.
Yeah, which is not bad. Like that's like some guys wouldn't date a girl they didn't know.
Yes,
they couldn't get like a maybe they didn't know anyone else of who. They were friends with.
There's no fingertip feel,
Yes, exactly. So some people don't like those type of scenarios because too much unknowns. They don't want to close their eyes and walk in the dark. Like, it doesn't make sense to them. So what happens is cause they rather be in community situations or when they know people, they're more standoffish to men that approach them. But in a man's mind, they just see women in the vicinity and they're like, okay, attack.
Open pickings.
Oh, like an open field. You can just pick off apples, basically. But it's never that easy because, like you said, the women are sometimes there for different purposes, right? They don't believe to find the love of their life or somebody that they see a future with at like a street festival, right? Because many men are approaching them. So sometimes they could give their information, Instagram number and stuff like that, but the chance of them even remembering you is another whole
That's a whole nother
story.
ordeal, that too, right?
But it's interesting because I know guys really look at this as a big opportunity throughout the year, if not the biggest opportunity. And I compare
That's why I get confused.
Yeah, and I compare it to a watering hole for animals where they do that long trek. If you've ever watched Animal Planet and Our World or any of these things, all the wildebeest do the long trek. With the zebras, they haven't drank water in days. It's been a drought, They had to move east and hit the watering hole, but they get there, they feel like we finally hit our safe haven, like we're all gonna drink. This is the moment we've been waiting for. But then they get closer to the water and they realize, it's croc infested. It's not gonna be so simple. And that's why I look at going to these festivals, men go there with the abundance mindsets thinking, oh yeah, there's so many chicks here, like all type of chicks from all over the city. How can I lose? Even if I shoot 100 shots, like surely I can't miss 100 shots. But I think in those type of situations, because there's so many women and because there's so many men and there's so much competition and so many exchanging of numbers, Instagrams and all that type of thing, you're gonna get lost within that night, that same day that you met the woman. Like, chances of you being that memorable is very unlikely. So I do think that at those festivals, it's cool to have fun. If you're doing it for the sport of just talking to girls and see what happens, I think that's cool. But going with the mentality that you're gonna get like a lot of women at these type of festivals, I think like you're mistaking yourself. Like, you're fooling yourself. Sorry.
So speaking on that, what I realize is some guys, how they look at it when they go to these street festivals is they see it as being a salesman and you're doing cold calls. And basically, the more cold calls you do, the more chances you'll get a client. But
Hypothetically,
that's what
the assumption is.
The more, like, it's volume. And salesmen
volume wise defeat, like, the quality.
But I was saying to him, this was my counter.
But this is quality versus quantity.
Yes, no, but my counter was this. But even a good salesman understands when you have to be strategic. Some salesmen don't go forth with the cold calling because they'll look for referrals, right? So they understood that they tried the cold calling attempt, and that's not working. That's not as efficient as getting referrals and mutual referrals to get their clients, which puts them in position to now sell to people out of just likeness.
Yes, instead of having
doing all the legwork from the very beginning, just to find out that they're not interested.
But I think
it's a lot of time wasted.
Yeah, so I think that comes down to experience. I think when you're younger, like I said, when I was young, I think that was the mentality of most men, right? Like, they're like, oh,
but even older men are still with the mentality of cold calling.
Well, I guess that just comes down to young mentality, right? Like, I guess that just comes down to your growth or your development being a little bit slower or not, not developing at that level. Because I think with anything in life, you have to strategize. It's just like making money. What you could have made when you're in your 20s, you got to change your mindset when you're in your 30s. And when you're in your 40s, you still have to change the mindset, because with each stage, you have different responsibilities and different things are going to be called in your name. You're going to have to be prepared for that adjustment. So just the same way with, in these type of scenarios, it's like you're gonna eventually, you should, if you're developing or if you're a person that looks back at the drawing board and you see your success and you see your efficiency, you're gonna say to yourself, maybe this is not the best strategy. Maybe I should change course to get more success. I'm not a fan of doing something like, the 100, like, you miss all the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
That line I told you before, I hate that saying, because it's like, okay, you took 100 shots and you made one. So what did you gain from that? 1% out of 100? Like, at the end of the day, that's not
your shot.
That's not your shot.
And you just
gotta
didn't
change something up.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you miss 100 out of, a 1 out of, if you miss 99 out of 100 shots, what does that tell you? That means you have to change up the strategy. And I think that just with men thinking that they're just going to come and see a bunch of chicks and then approach them and believe that their game is going to be the thing that sells them, I think we do got to change our course of thought process. I think, again, like we talked about, a lot of the times why women encourage certain men is because there's a trust factor there.
Yes.
Why women are discouraged by a lot of men is because there's no trust. There's no belief in who you are and what you say is true. So it's not to say you're not attractive enough. It's not to say that this woman wouldn't date you under different circumstances, but it's just in this current circumstance, it's not going to be the best situation for you to win. And she may deny you, even a woman that you probably could get under different circumstances. So I do believe that. I do believe that when you do take a shot in these scenarios, just have the understanding that you shouldn't take any of this too serious. You're doing it for fun, see what it gets you, but I wouldn't say it's like the best strategy. I still believe in like community, knowing people, trusting people. That's your best way to get what you want out of relationships or dating.
100%. I think women, the reason why they're on guard when it comes to men that they don't know is because they probably got burned in the past
100%.
by giving those type of guys
Access,
right?
information.
Information and stuff of that sort, right? So that could just be experience based. So
Yeah.
it's like, you know what? I don't want to deal with somebody that I don't, where they're an unknown factor, they're an X factor. I want to deal with somebody that I have some additional information on. Or what I noticed too with some women is that they're planners, they're organizers. They like things in a consistent manner. Like they want to know what's the next step all the time. They always want to know, okay, so if you're doing this, okay, we're going to do this today. So by tomorrow, you're going to do this. And then by the next day, you're going to do this. So they have like a blueprint of how you conduct your life. They like to know things. They don't like surprises.
They don't like
But
surprises,
men
yeah.
are more spontaneous. So they're not really planning for what's coming next sometimes, right? It's like, today I did this. And then tomorrow you went a whole different direction.
Yes.
And now they're thrown off. It's like, wait, hold on. I thought you were going to go this way because you started off like this. Yeah, but that's not how I conduct my life.
Yeah,
I could just make a sharp left turn out of nowhere and it won't even make sense. It's like, wait, tell me the logic of why you made the left turn. No, I literally just made the left turn because I felt like making the left turn. So that throws them off. That throws them for a loop because now they have an imbalance because they don't know what your next move is, and that makes them agitated and then makes them have anxiety because they don't really quite understand your movement. They wanna recognize patterns. That's what I'm trying to say.
So you're saying that, yeah, they want to recognize patterns. And I
Yes.
think, like I said, the trust issue fact that women have compared to men, like men comparatively are not really trying to do a deep dive into women they're talking to. We're not trying to figure out how much guys they talk to. Like, I mean, contrary to social media and what the conversation is and like the red pill and stuff, I don't think men are running around asking for body counts and this and that. I think men are just accepting what women they get, right? Like, again, we're not getting them in abundance. So when you get with a woman, especially if she's gorgeous, beautiful, you're going to be lenient towards certain things, especially if it's something that you don't get often. So I think men understand that factor when it comes to it. But yeah, women definitely love a trust factor. But again, guys, shoot your shot. I'm not here to knock anyone that wants to shoot their shot. Shoot your shot if that's what works for you. But for me personally, I think sometimes you just got to learn to admire things from afar. And like, again, you can't get them all anyways. You only can get one. You only can get, or some if you want some.
You just a window shopper.
Sometimes you
mad at me.
I think I know. Sometimes better to window shop because you don't want those problems. Like they say, you don't want those problems. But on to another topic. I did want to just talk about us being in June. We're now halfway in the year, buddy. Half year through the year. And boy, did it go quick.
Just flew right by.
I didn't even really like quantify it till I said it right now. It's like, damn, we're 6 months in. And what can we say? First I'll ask you and then I'll answer the question. First of all, in the last 6 months, would you feel do you feel that you're any closer to your dreams and your goals?
That's a good question.
At least for this year.
I think I'm moving a little bit faster than I anticipated.
Okay.
A little bit faster than I anticipated, just at the fact that, well, one, remember I was, I tried something new. Not going to really put it out there, but basically it was something regarding stretching, right? There's a company out there, they pretty much stretch you out, and it's something different because people tend to underestimate how important stretching is. And if somebody stretches you out, how much better you feel, especially if you're working and you're sitting down all day, like if you're working a corporate job or just working any type of job where you're constantly just sitting at a desk and or you don't work out, stuff of that nature, your body turns stiff, right? That's why when we yawn, we stretch. That's why we get up off chairs, we stretch. It's part of our human functionality. stretching is
Any animal,
and
stretching.
yeah,
Most
every animal
animals,
exactly. It's part
if
of
they have limbs, they have to stretch
exactly. It's
themselves.
just as part of our functionality. And so there's a company out there that literally all their job, they're called flexologists. All their job is to stretch you out for 50 minutes. So I've been doing that, and I've been feeling good because they really open up your hips, they open up your arms, if your shoulder's tight, if your back is tight, your lower back, so on and so forth. They just stretch every aspect of your body. It's almost like a massage when you come out because you feel like a burden lifted off.
Okay.
You're light on your feet. You feel really good. But basically what I'm saying is I didn't expect to actually do that. I think, so the first time I ever did it was in Japan. And then after I realized they had it in Toronto, and I got it as a gift for my birthday. And then I'm like, you know what? I'll do it for 3 months. And I don't regret it.
So how's this help you towards your goals for the year? Like what did
Well,
this
because I had an
contribute to your
injury,
goals?
I had a knee injury, and I still have it.
Yeah.
So the whole purpose was for rehabilitation,
Okay.
right? Getting me back on my feet, being able to get back to playing sports, and so on and so forth. So I took initiative in the early stages to do that, so it could help me in my recovery process. Then
You don't need to get necessarily into
no,
the
then I was
details,
no, I'm not.
but
Yeah, no, but yeah. Then going into the next thing that I was doing, working on a book. Where we're both working on that book, and that's gonna be coming out soon. So having that almost done is a huge deal because I've been thinking about that whole book from last year, right? And then I'm finally implementing it and putting pen to paper, making it happen. So that's a big deal. And then we got other stuff in the works that are also moving full throttle before the 6 month has already hit. So I would say that honestly, I'm moving faster, but I've also changed what things I was doing prior to last year. Last year I was running and gunning, sports, the whole galore, marathon. You had Dr. Umar Johnson. We had like a lot of stuff, just bang, 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 bang. So now it's just a different, I would say these 6 months has been a little different. It's been grooving a little bit different, changing. But how about yourself?
I think for me, like in the 6 months, like now that I reflect, a lot of things has changed in the mere 6 months. When you think of it as a whole, it seems like, damn, that went quick. But then when you kind of break it down month by month and you start to see, oh, I did this, oh, I got that done, oh, I got, So I think for me, although I wouldn't say, everything's perfectly how I planned it, but I would say that, with the last 6 months, a lot of changes has happened in my life, right? And, some things were positive, others not so positive. And I did have some plans early in the year to where I would be by this stage. And certain things didn't hit the mark yet, right? So I understand that, but I understand that with life you have to pivot. So I think with this year, I did take things a little bit slower, especially in terms of like you said, we were doing the marathons and doing the Spartan race and Dr. Umar Johnson interviews and a lot of different crazy things going on, just generally speaking. And this year, I'd say in the last 6 months, nothing of maybe that caliber I've done.
Yes.
Like I wouldn't say I did anything like in terms of accomplishments or something that was to that scale. Well, you know what accomplishment I have. I'm not going to explain it on this platform. But again, I think with me, I kind of took a step back just to get focused on, myself and my own life and what's going on in my life. So just to reel things back and maybe not put too much focus on external things that still benefit me but aren't the priority in my life. So I think in the last 6 months, I've learned that I have to prioritize certain time towards my personal goals rather than, just to maybe entertain others or to fit in with others. I've learned to take a step back in the last 6 months and really be more independent in terms of what I got going on instead of, thinking about what other people got going on and putting energy into what other people got going on. I think in the last 6 months, my focus has been more so on what I got going on, what we got going on. And I like that trajectory. I like sometimes in life you got to be a little bit selfish.
No, 100%.
You can't be here to people please and show up to this person's party and their event and their, situation that they got going on and this hangout. We just don't got the time sometimes. And I think in this...
Especially as you get older.
As you get older. And in the last 6 months, I started to realize that, look, it's all fun, hanging around with people, chilling with people, having good times. But if you're not where you want to be, you have to kind of look back at yourself and say, the time that I'm spending here, I could be putting towards what I got going on or improving what I got going on. And I think sometimes we join stuff to kind of run away or put whatever real is going on in our life, put it on the back burner. But I think addressing your own issues is the biggest thing you should be thinking about. And with speaking on that, we obviously are now in Men's Mental Health Month. Of course, you've heard of Men's Mental Health Month?
Of course.
And speaking on, like we were just talking about, like this mental health thing when it comes to men, what's your thoughts on this whole Men's Mental Health Month? Because I'll be honest, before you brought it up to me, I was not even really aware. I won't even lie to you.
So I would say this. I think the reason why Men's Mental Health Month hasn't really shed too much light on it is because there's two things that are going on. It's Mental Health Month. It's Men's Mental Health Month. It's also LGBTQ month as well, right?
Pride Month.
Pride Month. So the thing is, it overshadows Men's Mental Health Month. It's hard to put two different...
I would say two big...
Yeah, two really big...
awareness months. Like,
I guess awareness, yeah. Two big awareness month in the same month. One is always gonna be bigger than the other.
Of course,
you know what I mean?
100%.
So there's a collision. There's definitely it's what it reminds me of? It's just like Christmas and Jesus' birthday. Like, people aren't necessarily thinking of Jesus' birthday.
Thinking of Christmas,
They're thinking of Christmas, Santa Claus, reindeers. So it gets lost in that whole...
Well, whichever one's more
shuffle, right?
Popular.
And it depends on where you're
promoted.
leaning towards. If you're like a heavy church goer, you're a Christian,
yes.
You're going to be at church. You're going to be dealing with Jesus' birthday. And then people that are into the commercial of giving and Santa Claus and Christmas carols.
So what do you think's more popular, the Santa Claus Christmas or the Jesus Christ Christmas?
It depends who you're talking to.
But
because if you're talking about the Christians, they would say that more people lean towards Jesus' birthday.
But I'm just
but
saying
in the general public, from what I see,
in
Western countries, it's definitely Santa Claus.
100%.
Santa Claus, for sure.
So the point of this
commercial
whole
holiday.
the point of this whole thing, and the reason why you said Santa Claus, what does it come down to?
Marketing.
So what does this come down to?
Marketing.
How much marketing do you see on Men's Mental Health Awareness? Have you seen them do anything that was like in your face?
Nothing.
Like, you're gonna know that this is Men's Mental Health.
Nothing, because the first things first, and which is, it's sad in a sense, because one, Men's Mental Health Month, there's not like an organization that's leading the charge for that. You know what I mean?
Not that I know.
That I know of. I could be wrong, but nothing that is in the mainstream media where it's pushed in your face. We don't have a flag either. So there's nothing that will indicate that there's a Men's Mental Health Month. So lack of funding of that awareness.
Yeah, lack of funding
is making it be overshadowed.
It becomes pretty ironic, in my opinion, because it's Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, but it's like the funding towards that is not even significant enough for men to even know about it. So
that's actually very oxymoronic. Yeah.
Like beneath the wayside too.
Yes, that's
and then the arguments like, well, you guys are men, why don't you guys rally it, or why don't you participate, or et cetera, et cetera.
But if the government made it an actual month, you would think that there'd be funding towards
and
it, right?
just like every other community that has their own events and things going on, or months, or celebration of months, or whatever the awareness. I think, there's obviously a lot of different, I guess, things that need to be discussed that you can say this is not represented enough, or that's not represented enough. But I think for men's mental health, why it's such a problem that like it's not promoted that often is just because how much men have done and how much men continue to do when it comes to society, right? Like when you realistically look at it and all the wars that were fought and all the different things that were going on that men had to deal with, especially a lot of these hard jobs that we know men die from, right? And historically have died from at a higher rate than any job women have been doing. So there's so much things that go in the forefathers, even not even just the men that exist today, the forefathers and stuff of that nature, that
even paying tribute to those.
And
right?
even just being the breadwinner, typical breadwinner, at least in a traditional family, like that comes with so much stress, so much pressure, and people don't recognize that part, right? They were saying the suicide rates are 3 to 4 times higher than women, in many countries. And that tells you something. That tells you that men have a lot more stress going on with them that they can't express, and then they go kill themselves. They delete themselves, as I should say. And that's a issue that society's dealing with. But clearly that's a big issue. 3 to 4 times more. That tells you mentally a lot of men are suffering in silence.
Yes.
But again, there's always the theory of man up, take it on the chin. You're stronger than that. Like always be stronger. And then a lot of men are not even making it to that point, which is sad. But I believe that men have so much pressure on themselves. So with that being said, and you knowing as a man the pressures you have of being a stand-up guy, honest guy, a guy that's trustworthy, making money, financially good, doesn't have certain vices, you just knowing that pressure and to keep that type of prestige, to keep that type of imagery or that type of reputation, you know how hard it is to keep that. What do you think needs to be like done in order for people to recognize the mental health of men and why it's important for men to even have this discussion? And
so I would say this, that for men's mental health awareness, the reason why it's so important is because men already don't talk about this type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
They sweep it under the rug. A lot of men would be ashamed or shy to talk about their issues, right?
More ashamed for sure.
Yeah. So
scared of criticism.
Scared of criticism.
And judged.
Also, being judged. Also don't want to give ammunition to somebody to possibly use in the future.
Against them, yep.
So being weaponized.
Absolutely. Because men are notorious for using information that, to their advantage.
For sure. So just using that to weaponize against them. So a lot of men are already on guard. So that's why when it's not being spoken on enough, it just defeats the purpose. You might as well
just cancel
it out.
Yeah,
just cancel it out.
Because I didn't know about it. Like,
just cancel the month.
It has to be in your face.
That's what I'm saying. If you're not gonna push it correctly in a way where men could actually feel the need to acknowledge the month,
it, and
don't even acknowledge that aspect of the month because it's already being poorly marketed. So that's what I would say.
And it hasn't been around that long. It said from 1994, so it's really not that much years. It's like 30 years.
So it's been out since 94.
Yeah, and then since 94.
If I tell you, I had no idea it's been out even 94.
Well, even
I've only figured that out within a couple of years back.
Yeah, men's mental health. Well, you're not going to hear about that till you're about like in your 30s, 40s.
That's true.
When you're in your 20s, you could give a damn about men's mental health. You're going through life, right? And I think that's just something that needs to be promoted more from younger.
Yes.
I think you have to let the guys know or the men know or kids that are becoming men, you have to give them that idea. I think with us, why we don't know about that, because it's not something that was pushed. There's not. I never heard that in school.
Not in school.
You ever heard anyone tell
Not
you
at the
about
work-
that?
not at the
the
workplace.
Nobody brings
Actually,
it up.
I've heard them saying that they're doing like meetings with like mental health, but
Yeah.
they're not saying anything specific, like specifically to men.
Yeah,
mental health.
mental
They're just
health.
saying mental health.
Mental health. If you just go, mental health in general, like most people are gonna have some type of
Yes,
mental health
of course.
issue, right? Like stress,
just
depression.
from experience and living in general, there's
Yeah.
gonna be some level of trauma that has
Exactly.
taken place.
And everyone's trauma is gonna be different. So, for example, like if say you have a men's mental health place, well, obviously, even some people want to identify with just being a man and the mental health of a man. They can be, how about a black man? Like my plight
Yes.
is different than a different person's plight. So there's a cultural aspect to this too.
That they never acknowledge.
That they don't acknowledge, right? It's not just being a man. Like a white man and a black man's life and existence in North America is very different,
Yes.
right? So, with that being said, and even any other race, whether it's Asian man or Indian man,
Yeah.
and everyone's plight is different, and everyone deals with different things, right? Like a white man doesn't have to deal with racism as a black man has to, so that kills his confidence more so, right? As a black man coming into maybe a predominantly white job, right?
Being profiled.
How does he supposed to, leverage himself when he feels like he's, undermined, right? Because of his race, or when he feels like maybe they just put him there because of his race, right? So it kills confidence, it kills certain aspects of being a man, and you need these traits to, move forward in life and obviously teach your kids certain lessons. But like I said, it's something that needs to be taught younger, and it has to be developed into something where people talk about this a little bit more, because unfortunately, like you said, as a guy, men are very unlikely to go to therapists too as well. It's frowned upon in terms of traditionally, the man is supposed to be the leader. A leader does not go to ask his followers for advice. A leader carves his own path. That's the thought process of what we think a leader is.
It's interesting that you
we
say
don't think
that.
about consultants.
Exactly, and it's interesting you said that because because you just actually jolted my memory. I did see something on Shaquille O'Neal, and he was talking about that he went on a podcast, and the podcast host was asking him, do you ever tell your woman your stresses in life? And he said, no, why would I? She would never understand my level of stress that I have to deal with, especially being the breadwinner.
Of course.
It's like, I have to be strong enough to make sure that everybody that's under me is taken care of. But who's taking care of me? Because I'm not supposed to show weakness. Because if I show weakness, then everybody else...
That's going to breed uncertainty in my family.
And it's going to trickle downwards,
and
right?
anxiety.
And
yes.
anxiety. So it's like, well, if I'm stressed out, and I tell my woman that I'm stressed out, well, now she's going to be stressed out because you're stressed out, and you're supposed to be the breadwinner.
And she's stressed out about you as the person she chose to be the leader.
Exactly. So it's like, if you don't know what's going on, I sure don't know what's going on. So now we're really both stressed out. Now the kids are stressed out because the mother's stressed out. So you see how
that trickling effect.
Yeah, that trickling effect messes everybody up psychologically. So therefore, the man has to now sit there and hold that burden. He has to hold that burden, figure it out however he sees fit.
Yeah.
But he has to keep marching on. It's like, even if you don't know the direction in which you're going, you better figure it out, because nobody else is going to tell you the direction.
Yes.
This is what leadership is. Leadership is for you to lead. Even if the path is dark, you better figure out how to make some kind of light.
Yes, exactly. And I think that kind of gets lost in our society too. I mean, there's guys that, they skip the whole mental health and they grind through it.
Grind right through it.
And they make it through their life.
Power
and
right
they
through it. Yep.
Power through it all.
Yep.
And their life, may have been disastrous and, tough times and stuff like that. But, there's been men that have been prosperous, at least for their family. And I think sometimes that's what happens. A lot of men sacrifice it all for their family and their future. So they don't think about the mental health factor of it.
But they don't have time to.
Because they don't have time to. They know that everything, the cookie crumbles when their mind is not right.
Yes.
And, so I'm not saying that, it's impossible to get through life without, like, dealing with a therapist. Some people have harder lives than others. Some people have easier lives. And some people have better coping mechanisms. So I think it's just up to your coping mechanism. What are you comfortable with? Do you talk to yourself? Do you maybe have a religion that you pray to and you get advice, from your church or from whatever sermons you're getting? So I think it just depends on the outlets that you have made for yourself. I think some people, they find refuge in talking with their friends, giving some, personal information to their friends, and maybe they can help them out or help them alleviate certain pressures and stuff like that, just to vent. Some people have to go through therapists. Some people, discuss it with their woman. I wouldn't say so, but hey, to each their own. I know what I would do, and that's something I would not do.
Yes.
But I think everyone has their own way of kind of getting the stress off their mind and that depression, that anxiety, that uncertainty. I think you could express it to people, but you have to be very weary of who you give this information to, because that vulnerability also could be a chink in your armor, depending on who you're discussing it with and what implications they may have in your life. That's why some people do go third party, because it's third party.
Yeah.
No involvement with your external affairs.
Yes.
You start telling a spouse, she now is married to you, so maybe
She'll
a
tell her
secret
friend,
or maybe a problem
cousin or
could
something.
cost you your marriage, right?
Okay, yeah.
And your kids, like certain information you could have given out, right? Say you committed a crime. She can now go to the court, oh, look, he did this. I want the full custody of the kids. Even though he said it in confidence to her, she can run back around because, humans aren't to be trusted, I would say. So I think you have to be careful when it comes to those type of certain things, especially I think for mental health. Lots of it would be secretive stuff, right? It wouldn't be something that's surface level. It'd be like maybe something from the past you've done or something that's haunting you still. So third party is always your best bet. If you're gonna go tell somebody something and you needed to vent and you needed advice, I would say so. But some people confide in a partner. But
Okay.
what's your thoughts on who you should talk to, what you should do when it comes to your mental health if you need someone external?
If you need somebody external, third party, I'll definitely agree with you on that. Third party would be your best bet. The next
Who's third party?
third party, it can be a random person on the street. You could be on the street
That's
and just
even
like,
colleagues. Some
yeah,
people that
it could
are
be a
not
colleague that they're just not
loose,
within your
circle,
your
don't know anything
circumference of
about
friends.
you.
They don't know nothing about you. You say it to them, they forget about it. Even if they talk about it, it's to somebody that doesn't know me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the thing is, you had a chance to vent.
I've heard
You
the
see-
worst
yeah.
of stories.
Yeah, same with
I'm
me.
not gonna tell anyone.
I've heard crazy stories from
craziest
people,
stories,
but it's
yeah.
like they just vented, and then at the end of the day, they're like, "Whoo!" They
Yeah,
took a
they
breather.
took a
They
good
go back
breather and they
to
walk
wherever they
away.
need to go, right? So
And you hear it. And
you hear, and you're like,
there's no
"Oh,
one else you
damn."
can tell
But
because
like,
they don't know him.
Exactly. So even if you do tell someone, you're not going to give the name of the person.
Yeah.
You're just going to be, I heard from this guy from my workplace.
This
He
is the
said this
story.
and this and this and that. And then people are like, whoa, I can't believe he told you that. But at the same time, so it's a win on his part and it's also a win on your part because you have information to share.
Yeah, you got some good laughs.
Yeah,
and,
or you
know.
got like a story.
Yeah, you got a
know.
story to tell.
It's like, God damn it, I got a story to
I
tell.
got a story to tell. Come to the podcast.
Exactly, right?
That's
So
it.
it's like you become a journalist without any repercussions because it's like you're telling the news, but you have no repercussion of telling that news. Because you're not dealing with anybody within his circle or his circumference that will know about the information that you've just
But
given.
realistically, would you tell anyone like some crazy thing?
Me
that happened to
personally,
you?
no. Me personally,
Even if
I
they're a
wouldn't.
stranger.
Me personally, no. I know that there's people that will do that, so I would give them that outlet because, like, some people you could literally go on a bench one day and see a homeless person this big, asking him about his story, and then after eventually you
and
tell
say
him
your story.
your story. What's this guy gonna really do? Tell
Yeah.
someone here, you know. But I would say like you're either doing a third party or maybe the closest person to you that knows you the best because that can help you as well.
But I think the closest person to you, reason why you might not want to tell them is because they're the closest person to you. So they might be like, depending on what's troubling you, that might not be something they expected to be troubling you.
Oh.
So you're like, oh, I don't want to tell them that because they don't know about this thing that I did or this thing that I'm stressed out about. That's more implication. That might cause for more questions rather than, you get what I mean, than a solution. Because it's like, wait, huh? What? You did this? You're in that? Yo, bro, I told you. Like, what? Like, huh? Like, so the judgment will always be there.
Well, the thing is, I think sometimes you need a level of judgment to wake you up.
Yes, you
can't
do,
just say, judgment.
Obviously, but that's, of course, that's the case. That's like doing the crime and doing the time.
Yeah.
People want to do the crime and don't want to do the time. People don't want to take accountability. That's why they would avoid to tell somebody that's going to make them take accountability. That's what I'm saying. That's why they go to a third party like a therapist, because they don't hold you account. They're not, what are they going to say if you tell them whatever you did or whatever, like it's stressing you? They're not going to tell you, why are you living this way? Why are you doing this? Why? They're not going to tell you those things. They're going to make you answer your own questions. That's how they deal with it. So now you're say someone you're very close with, the chances of them being like, yo, bro, I gave you this advice or I did this or whatever, say they don't have those problems. Then they say, I told you this advice. I told you to be doing this, be doing that. To in their head, it's like, well, I don't want you to judge me on this. I'm just saying this is what my issues are. Like, you're not helping me by judging me. So that's why people go to third parties, because they don't want that judgment. They want less accountability. And I think sometimes the therapists provide something that's like less of an accountability.
Does that help your situation?
Well, it might not help your situation.
Are you looking for a solution, or are you just looking for someone to give you a pat on the back?
They can give you a solution, but they're not going to judge it the same way, right? They understand. They should be more emotionally intelligent than, say, your buddy or even a family member. They train in being emotionally intelligent. So they'll be able to maneuver and basically...
They're also trained to be paid. How'd they figure out a way to get paid?
Well, they get paid because they learn the skill, right? Their skill is what they're getting paid for, and this is the skill I'm talking about.
Okay.
So based on their skill, they would know how to deal with whatever issue it is you bring up. It can be the craziest issue. They didn't need to hear of your story to figure that out. They went to school for those type of things. So they're just going to give you the same rubric as they've been doing, unless you find someone exceptional. But they're going to give you a rubric of, okay, you need to do this, or what could you do to be better? They're going to ask you questions, and you're going to answer the questions. And then you're going to figure out your own problems, and then it's up to you to solve your own problems. So they're not solvers. They're just guiding you to the path. They're just giving you, when you can't read something on the shelf and you need a stepping stool? That's what they are. That's all they're there. They're just there to step on, to make your decision. They're like a stepping stool, just a little guidance. So that's what I believe in terms of like a therapist.
All right.
A guidance kind of counselor type thing.
Well, we're wrapping up this podcast. What would you have to say to the men that may be struggling with their mental health, and how they should go about it, how they should find that help that they're looking for, or if they feel trapped in some shape or form?
This is a tough one because I can't say I definitively know the answer. I would say, obviously, the normal thing people say is always talk to someone. And that's not enough information because there's many people you can talk to that aren't advisable to talk to. But I would say this much. If something's troubling you and you need to get off your mind, first look towards people that you're close with. So people you're close with that have understanding, maybe you don't need to go into full details, but maybe speak to them and say something's troubling you. Try and get advice from others as well, right? And then based on that, try and see, where that leads you. If that doesn't lead you anywhere, then you might have to seek outside help. Don't be ashamed to seek outside help. I think that, especially if you have like benefits and certain things that could, where you don't have to pay that much money. If you have to pay out your pocket and you can't afford, that's different. But if you have the avenues to get certain things done, maybe see a therapist, maybe explain certain things, just to see the process, I would say don't be afraid to experiment if it's troubling you to that extent. Meditate, sit, think with yourself, cut off certain things, you're going to have to really, discipline yourself a little bit. You're going to have to force yourself to get away from certain things that you feel are taken away from your life. And that's hard. It's easier said than done. But you're really going to have to look in the mirror and really have to do a hard reset if you feel like the things you're doing is getting you in the wrong path. So I think it's a lot of self-reflection, a lot of self-awareness, a lot of, thinking about what you're doing, what you've done, and moving forward from there. But in terms of talking with someone, go to a professional if you don't want to go to a close friend or family member. What's your thoughts?
I think I agree with what you just said. There's no definitive answer for how to go about it just because everybody dealt with their situation different. Some people are less emotional than others, so they don't need to necessarily go and speak to somebody in order to get through their problem. They'll channel that into working out. They'll channel that into boxing. They'll channel that into jiu-jitsu. They'll
reading, skill learning,
skill
whatever.
learning. Right? They figure out ways to take that pain or take that type of energy and they just kind of funnel it into a different avenue, a different pipeline, which helps them get through their situations. So sometimes those same people are looking at others and saying like, it's really not that hard to kind of, maneuver
and get disciplined and do something.
This, but then it's like
another person struggling.
Not everybody's on that type of time, you know. Other people are struggling in other ways where it's like, no, I do need to express myself. I do need to talk to somebody. I do need to. So you got to kind of find out who you are and where you stand in terms of how much do you need help in? Do you need somebody to speak to? Or can you channel your energy into more achievements, more hobbies and skills that you can learn, which will help take you off that mind frame of feeling that you're depressed.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? Could you keep yourself busy long enough to just kind of work right through the depression and do what you got to do?
And sometimes you're depressed because you don't do nothing. You don't travel. You don't do anything exciting in your life. You just go to work and go to sleep. So I think involve yourself in life, man. Wake up. Get shit done. Push yourself. See new things. When you're doing all this new stuff, trust me, the depression, all those things start to fade away. So you guys have to focus on getting yourself focused on different things, not just living your life like a broken record. Every day the same shit, every day the same shit. Everyone, who wouldn't want to delete themselves after that? 100%. You gotta expand your mind, start learning, start seeing new things, start pushing yourself, and maybe you take that trip somewhere. I never heard of a depressed person that traveled and came back. They might be depressed coming back, but they
weren't depressed over there on the other side of the world.
But at least that provides motivation. You know, certain things like that you need in life. Those motivations, those inspirational stuff, that gets you going. You need some fuel in that engine. Nothing better than like leaving the country for a bit, coming back. And if you don't have the money for that, there's other things you can do to get into, but build yourself towards that. Grind hard, push yourself, because you have to make sacrifices in life. We all do.
And I think that's all we have on the podcast for today. This is Far From Normal Podcast. And thanks for tuning in, guys.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We are out.
Deuces.